So I said before that loss is typically tied into relationships. When we work on our loss graphs, and we're graphing out all the different types of losses that we've experienced, then we zero in on, out of those losses, what is the most painful relationship tied into those specific losses that I've experienced. And then when we find that relationship, then we do what's called a relationship graph. And because in a relationship, we can do one of two things. We can enshrine that person where they were the absolute best. They were perfect at everything, and they were the saint, most loving, most incredible person. Or we do the other, where we bedevil them, and they were the meanest, the worst, the bane of my existence. But the truth of it is, there is no relationship that is all good or all bad. And so when we graph out a relationship, we're really looking at the balance. We're looking at the loss in the relationship, but we're also looking at positive things that happen in the relationship. And that helps us get the bird's eye view and a good perspective of what that relationship was really like. When we've had a lot of hurt and loss and pain in a relationship, we kind of live in that pain line. And so to graph it out and then to see that there were positive aspects, it actually helps us get out of that hurt and pain and start having some good positive memories of the relationship. And then when we're balanced out, it helps us to move on to the next piece of work. Same thing with enshrinement. When we enshrine somebody, we're not seeing the bird's eye view. We're just only thinking of, and some of that comes from, I love them so much, I don't want to disrespect them in any way, but it's not truthful. I mean, truthful in that there were negative things in the relationship. There were emotional losses that you may have felt. No one is perfect, not even grandma. As much as I love my grandma, she wasn't perfect. And I had to own that. I had to connect with what areas were not so perfect. So we graph that out. It helps us to see the bird's eye view, helps us to identify what I want to effectively communicate. Because it could be that they were great, but you never got to tell them that. It could be that there were little things that hurt in the relationship and you were never honest about it. So it really helps us to see the truth of the relationship. Even when you divorced or dating and breaking up and you have a broken heart over it, you can bedevil or enshrine that person. I remember a guy that broke up with me. I romanticized this person so much that I enshrined them. They were the perfect guy and no guy could ever take his place. And it wasn't until I faced the truth that I romanticized this relationship, because he wasn't so perfect. And there were hurtful things that happened in the relationship. But that was, recognizing the truth of both sides is what really helped heal my broken heart in that situation. When we're graphing out a relationship, it's really important that we identify both the positive things and the loss that we feel in the relationship. So I know this is a lot of information being thrown at you on grief. My goal is to help you navigate through these challenging times. So I've provided for you a free grief guide handbook. This guide gives over 50 tips on the experience of grief and how to help ourselves and people around us through it. So please download the guide on the link below. It is really helpful to understand this topic since we are not really taught or educated on grief. So I hope this guide will be a useful tool for you. How do you work on a relationship graph? So you would take a piece of paper, you draw your line across the length of the paper, and above the line, you would chronologically, you would write all the positive things that you can remember. Anything from, for me, my mom used to bake bread, and now the smell of baked bread just warms my heart. It just makes me think of my mom. So it could be the smallest things, but they're positive, and it's a memory that is meaningful to me. And then below the line are all the losses that you would experience. So it would be, like for me, my mom's motorcycle accident and what that meant. It meant that she was gone for a year. She was paralyzed from the waist down, and we had a lot of medical problems. She was at the doctor's office, ERs. So there were all kinds of different losses tied into my mom's motorcycle accident. So you write all of that, graph it out below the line. It's not that important to get the exact age or the exact date. It's really just, you're just doing a time frame of specific time, like around this year or this age. It's just a way of organizing, chronologically organizing your different losses that took place. And it helps you to see, once you've graphed that out, it then gives you insight into things that, like a memory that you may have, but you don't understand, like why. And you start seeing these patterns. Like for instance, my mom, she was a teenager when she had me, so I just remember, like before I ever graphed it, I just remember having these little thoughts of like, my mom's never here, my mom's never here. So then when I graphed it out later in my life, I graph out, right? And I write different memories of waking up and she's gone. She's off with the boyfriend. Then I started to see these patterns of why in my mind I kept feeling like she was never around. But then the balance of that is, it also helped me to fill in those blanks of, oh, no, she was there. And these are the memories that I have. So graphing can really be a useful tool to identify patterns in a relationship, emotions that are there, but you don't know why you're feeling what you feel until you really graph out all the little memories that you have. After working on a relationship graph, what that does is it helps us to discover what felt incomplete, what was left unsaid. Those components, those things that are left incomplete, is key to our healing. So what we're going to talk about in the next video is how to write out those type of components so we can start our recovery. So watch this video and I'll see you over there.